Hello guys, how are you doing today? All right, so I'm not going to be talking about giving us any intro whatsoever to what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm just going to quickly illustrate something that someone asked me to show him. So I just felt I should do a tutorial about it. So the person wanted me to explain or to give an overview of Realflow, just how to start with it so that they can be comfortable working in Realflow. So I'm just going to quickly talk about Realflow and what it's used for and how to get yourself comfortable with Realflow. All right, so Realflow is a plugin um, that is incorporated in Cinema 4D, which is actually used for fluid simulation. So sorry. So if you are looking at trying to make liquid simulation, particle, maybe sand or sugar, or even foam simulation, then Realflow is more like one of the best software out there or plugin out there that helps you to get that simulation and accurately. So that is what Realflow is all about. So where you can find your Realflow, when you have it installed, you have a tab out here where you can click and you have Realflow here. All right. So another place where you can also have Realflow is if you have an object and you also have tag for Realflow. So for instance, I have this object. If I right click and you also have Realflow tag. All right. Then the other place is here in your material. So if you double click and you open the material, then you would want to come into this texture field. You will have Realflow wet map. So this is used for creating your wet map. So, and by the way, this is R19. If you're using R21 thereabouts, you won't have that tab here. You won't have Realflow here. You have a plugin option where you can choose that. All right, so that is just where you can find your Realflow. And then I don't think we have here in the render settings. Do we have? No, I don't think so. No. So those are the places where I always check for my Realflow. So let's just quickly look at basic things in Realflow. So when you open your Realflow, the first thing you want to do is um, you want to create your emitter, but let's look at this. So the scene is more like the environment where you want to create your simulation. That is what the scene is about. So this environment takes up all these different sections. You can already see you have a separator. So the master tool here, or the master tool you can pick here, is the scene, which holds the whole simulation. So you can have more scenes in your viewport. You can have more than one scene. So that is there. So anything you have in a particular scene will have interaction together. So if you have a different scene, then whatever you have in scene one doesn't have interaction with scene two. So I hope you understand that. So the next one is the emitter. So the emitter are the sources of your fluid. So what is generating the fluid for you? So that is what the emitter. So you have circle emitter, cylinder emitter, and all that. Then you have your demons. So your demons are more like um, modifiers to the effect you get on your emitter. So whatever particle that have been generated by the emitters, what kind of modification do you want to add to it? So that's what these daemons are. Then the deformers are different type of objects which can also, so you can actually use Realflow to create a rigid body and elastic and simulation and all that. Then you have your fluid. So the fluid is what gives you the kind of fluid you want. So this, it's inside this fluid where that is where you can get the property of the particular fluid. So you can go online and search for a particular property of whatever fluid you want to simulate. So let's say, for instance, you want to simulate oil. You have to go online, check for the property, basic property of oil. Then you can plug in those information in this fluid. So then you have your measure. Measure is what gives this object um, geometry for rendering. So let's just quickly look at the basic scene. So I'm going to create a plane and scale this plane up. And the purpose why I'm creating this plane, you will see in a bit, and you will appreciate why I showed you different places where you can get that. So if I go to this and I have my emitter, so we have different types of emitters. So let's look at the first one, which is the most popular one. So we have circular emitter. Notice as I click on that circle, it creates this scene for me. And I now have my scene, measure, emitter, fluid. So also create a fluid for me automatically. And if you notice, the fluid is already plugged into my emitter. So what is this saying? It's letting us know that, okay, if I don't have anything here, for instance, if I delete and I play, you don't see anything. I'm already simulating, but you're not seeing the effect of the fluid. You're not seeing any fluid coming out from this. The reason is because the emitter is looking for what to emit. So there is no particle for it to emit. So for us to get this particle, then we have to have a fluid. So how you can do that is go to the fluid emitter, and under the emission, where you have your link, just add your fluid. As soon as you add, you notice it falls down. So that is the first thing you want to see. And if you also see that my particle is falling through this plane, so I want this plane to hit this particle to be like a collider. So that is where the tag comes in handy. So if you go to this plane, you right click, you go to your Realflow tag, you have your collider. So if I click on collider and go back, you notice it hits this spreads out. So now this is now colliding with this. Now if I orbit a little bit, you're going to see something. So that is why when you are simulating this, you need to always orbit and see what you get to have. You notice this. This is not interacting with the particle, with the plane. You have this um, space at the top here. And that space is as a result of this what's it called, this two things actually. The first thing for me to solve this issue, the first thing I'll need to do is to go to my render setting, Control and Command D takes me to my render setting. Then if I go to the dynamics, you go over to your expert, so you have your collision margin. I want to bring this down to 0 so that I don't have anything. So that's the first thing. The other thing is under your emitter here. So if I go to the collider tag, you also have a collision distance. I don't want to have any distance here. Then if I undo and play, this should collide, and I think we will still have the same issue. And I'm sure, yeah. So the reason why we have the same issue is that this particle, the detail, the resolution of the particle is not enough, it's not that large, it's very small. So for me to set the resolution, I have to add another tag. So you right click, you go to Realflow volume. So I have to change this to high. So if I play this again, this should have solved this problem. Okay, so let's see. You can already see that it is now very close to this object here. Okay, so that is how to do that. Then the other thing you also want, so let's look at the emitter itself. So if you look at the emitter, you can change the shape of the emitter. So the default shape is circle. So if you want to change it to all the other options, you can change here. Then you have your volume. So your volume is at 0, meaning the initial volume of your particle. You don't want to have any initial volume. That is why. So if I increase this, so this is telling us that we want to have this initial volume before particle starts going up. Then this is what we're going to have. So you can use this as more like in X particle, you can make this more like a short effect. So if I want to have a total of this volume, and that is all I want, so we can just do that, and that falls and stops. We don't have any emission. Then you have your speed. So the speed will determine how fast this emission is. So if I increase the speed and go back, you notice the rate at which it falls down. Okay, then I'll bring this back to. So you have your vertical random and horizontal random. So that is what affects the randomness in the particle here, all these particles. So if I bring these guys down to 0, 0, you notice everything is just uniform and you start having this breaking. So that is why you have this. So for you to randomize this, you need to add some randomness to this. So the vertical is for the up and down. Okay, can start seeing that this is now beginning to have a shape. But for the horizontal, we are still seeing something inside there. So that is why the horizontal also comes in handy. So if you do that now, you notice you don't get to have. So if I want to increase more of this, you have this randomness to this. Then you have a side emission. So what the side emission does is just to emit sideways also. So if I add that, it emits sideways. So if you want to maybe you want to create this effect thereabout, so that is what that is used for. Then you have your ring ratio. I've not touched this anyway, so but let's see. So the default is so okay, ring will create a ring inside. So that's I've not really used that. Just create a ring inside it. So the emission will only be around this edge, but the center will have no emission. So let's see. So I think I should just add this over to this guy here so you can see what it's talking about. As to if you don't have this, then go back. There's particle everywhere in the whole volume. So that is for this. But if you notice this guy, then you have your mask where you can mask out some things. But I rarely touch this. So I'm only going to pick things that I use most often for you to just understand how to work well with this. Then once you're done with the emitter, the next thing you want to go to is your fluid, because the fluid is what gives this particle this property that you're seeing here. So if you go to the fluid, you have your fluid section, particle section, cache, and display. So for the fluid section, nothing is here actually. So you have the first thing you need to know is just having your different types. So your fluid type, you have your dump type. So the dump type is used for more of foam and bubble. You have your liquid SPH rather. So this is a more accurate representation than the PBD, but the difference is just that this takes longer time to render or to calculate than this. Then you have your granular. Granular is used for creating sand particle and sugar and all that. Then viscose is used for creating thick fluid, more like jelly-like or let's say oil. So if you want to create oil, so that is what viscose is used for. Then you have your viscoelastic too. Then you have your resolution. So the resolution is what determines the number of particles that falls also. Okay, so and also gives a more accurate representation of your fluid simulation, but it takes longer to render. So if I bring this to let's say 20, just see the difference. See, you tend to have more particle and the detail, you have more detail in this particle. So the thing here is that when you want to start your testing, you want to come low, but by the time you are doing your final simulation and you've added your daemons and gotten the effect you want, then you want to bring this up and tweak this. So if I bring this to 30, you see that you have more resolution. This gives you even more information about the edges. So that is what this is. So I'm going to bring this to 5. Then you have your density. So the density is a property that determines or lets you know how particles will float. So basically, the higher the value So how do I put this? So when you have two fluid objects, a higher value means the particle will come down, while a lower value means the particle will float. So if you are looking to create more like oil, then you want to change this value down. So basically, I would advise you just go online and check for the density value for oil and water so you can see this. So, but if you want to separate two liquid, you want to have a very considerable high amounts of difference. So if you're having 1000 for one object, maybe for the other liquid, you should be having 300 or 400. Then you see both. Um, you see the difference between both. All right. So I think in the later, um, I'm going to be talking about a more specific tutorial about this. So you have your internal pressure and all this. You can just check the information about this online and check. So then you have your maximum particle that you can have. You can notice as I'm simulating, there is um, a head-up display here for me showing me the number of particles that I've already. And the thing with this maximum particle is that if you don't want to have more than this particular particle, you can just choose that number. So let's say I don't want to have more than 4,000 particles. Okay, so what that means that by the time I simulate, by the time it gets to 4,000, it stops. So it doesn't have more than 4,000 particles in the scene. So that is what this maximum particle does. So then the next one is initial state. So what this initial state does is that if you want to simulate and start your simulation from this basic state, then two things you need to do. You need to create initial states, then use the initial state, because if you don't click on use initial state and you come back, it starts again from this. So you always need to first off create initial state. So let's leave it this way: you create initial state and you use. So by the time you go back, it starts from here. So if you play, that becomes initial state. All right, so that is there. Okay, so we have that. Then you have your particle. So particle, we're going to talk about this. Then you have your cache. So your cache is what hold whatever you've cached. Then you have your display. So if you play here, you notice the display that I have for this particle. It is as a result of what we have here. You can also increase the size of your particle. You can see that the particle size are increasing here. Then you have your percentage. So the percentage is the percentage of the total particle you are seeing in your viewport. So if at a particular time you are emitting 1 million particles, for instance, and you choose this to 10%, so that means you are going to be seeing 10% of 1 million particles in your scene. So I hope that, but 100% means I want to see the total particle, the full particles rather. So then you have your color particle. So this is used to differentiate one particle from one fluid from another fluid. So if you're going to be having more than one fluid in the scene and you want to see each of these different fluids, so you can just change the color so you can have that. So if I change this to this and bring this to, you can see that this is changing. All right, so that is what that does. So let's look at the daemon. So now playing this, these particles are just falling down. Okay, they're just falling down. We don't really see the interaction of so the first thing, when you are having your particle, you need to have gravity to it, right? So if you go over to your Realflow, you come to daemons, you have your gravity. So if you click on gravity, notice gravity affects your particle and you now have this color coding. So this will now bring us back to our fluid. So this is the color coding that you have here. All right. So this white color means when the object is at its maximum speed. So by the time it hits and is resting, it goes to blue. So this is its full rest and this is its maximum speed. So as it's coming, this is changing. All right. So notice as they are falling down, the color start changing to blue. These ones are still moving, so they are coming. So these ones are all at their rest. Okay. All right. So notice this is the rate at which this fluid slides is more. You can always go and change this in your tag here. So if you go to the collision tag, you see your bounce and your friction. So you want to up your friction. So if you up your friction to this and reduce the bounce and replay this, notice the rate at which it goes is reduced. So it doesn't slide as we had before. Then you also have your stickiness. So your stickiness is the property that defines how the object sticks to a geometry. So how it is. So if you reduce this, make it minus value. So that means you're going opposite. You don't want it to stick. All right. So if you make this here, you would really understand this by the time. Let me just rotate this so you understand more what I'm saying. So let's have this. So let's bring this. If you play, you notice start sliding down and the friction is making it slide less. All right, so let's bring the friction down a little bit and play. So you notice it's coming down. Okay. All right, so sorry about that. My laptop battery was low, so I had to quickly resolve that. I forgot I didn't connect it. So I was talking about the stickiness, and if I bring this friction down and replay this, you notice the rate at which it slides down is very high compared to when you increase the friction, you can see. Then for the bounce, if I increase this bounce and replay, you notice it bounces off. See the rate at which it bounces. So that is what all these things, what they do, you can see. But let's look at this stickiness. So what this sticky does is that it makes this object stick to the plane. So it also adds more weight to this object. So if you use this in cooperation with your friction and bringing down your bounce, then you should have that sticking more to this surface. All right. So that is what that is about. So really, then for the wet map, I'm going to be talking about this in a separate tutorial. I already have pre-recorded a tutorial on wet map, so I'm just going to upload that. So there you understand what each and every of these things do. So, but for this tutorial, we just want to talk about more like an overview of Realflow and how to set up your Realflow and be comfortable with that. So I think I'm going to end the tutorial here because it's actually that's taking long. So if you think this tutorial was helpful to you, please do give me a thumbs up and like. And also you can also give your comments in the description, just in the comment section, and tell me what you feel about this and what you feel I should talk more about. And if you are new to this channel, you can also subscribe because I do tutorial like this every time. So I would say you should have a wonderful day and God bless you. Bye.